Morning guys, Moorhuhn here. Today, while we will only take a very short look at actual in-game footage, we are taking a look at a whole lot of cool options for Divine Retribution. Because there is something up in the pipeline for me and for my Divine Retribution char. Currently here, just running around with a speed farmer for gold. That I will sneak peek at the end of the video what I am up to, but first of all I want to take a look at a lot of very cool ideas I have seen at POE Ninja and talked with people about, and just wanted to highlight a lot of cool interactions because there is so many options for this skill and this archetype that I didn't want to just keep it at what I have personally been doing. Though I am very pleased with the experience I have had with the skill so far, and I'm very much looking forward to into the direction of what we are taking the build, because we are going to take a full 180 and changing everything. But before that, let's take a look at all of these cool characters I have taken a look at, and I have handpicked these out of a lot of characters I have looked at. And all of these have cool interactions I want to talk about a bit. So, first of all, I will drop down all of these characters into the video description. So if you want to take a closer look at these characters, feel free to just go there and take a look, pull them into your path of building, and just, well, take a look. It's just so many amazing ideas. So first of all, we have one of the hybrids. I'm featuring two hybrids in this, which is the first two. These are very different and take a very different turn. We have Divine Retribution in a 6-link setup, very much known, very much basic setup. Then we have, actually it's in the gloves here, we have a Crushing Fist setup in the Doryani's Fist gloves, I'm sorry. Which is a very cool secondary skill. So it's using Divine Retribution and Crushing Fist in like sync with each other. This lets this character forego any cooldown recovery support, so it can use a true 6-link on full damage and a true 4-link here. In addition, it might use Doryani's touch skill. I actually I'm not sure because I haven't seen the build in action, but it might use Doryani's touch for like just clearing as like while the retaliation skills are down. Though this very much looks like a very big fortify supplier and just additional damage for the build. Very cool interaction, doesn't have a weapon. This is Aegis Aurora for defense, 26k armor, 2k energy shield, nothing insane, but nothing to sneeze at. Also, like, the first hit pool is a bit low, but very much a very interesting setup. 2 flasks, no weapon, it's just pleasant to look at. Very cool setup, in my opinion. Also, no jewel sockets, it seems. So, actually, this is very interesting. It's 6 days ago, and it's just a very wild setup. I have not looked too deep into this. I just wanted to showcase the Doryani's Fist variant. I'm sorry. Second setup, which also is a hybrid version, is very much interesting as well. It takes a very different turn at the hybrid version. It uses a Lycosidae to gain additional cold damage to Crushing Fist and Divine Retribution, which it uses both in a 6-link setup. The Crushing Fist in the body armor, just normal 6-link here, and the Divine Retribution in a concentrated effect, more spell damage helmet. Very cool setup. This is a Rebuke key of the Val, very high damage sword, which a lot of different damage types, and then it uses the Marilyn's Fallacy, which is a very interesting turn on the usual elemental, what's called elemental overload variant, because this one forgoes elemental overload completely, so it cannot crit and takes down the crit chance by a lot, but utilizes the cruel retort not for triggering elemental overload, but for gaining a crit out of every 4th hit. This is a very, very interesting setup here, because you can see this is at 500k average damage, Crushing Fist, and yeah, and it nearly doubles the damage here just by having every 4th hit critting, which is very interesting. So very, very cool setup, very interesting choice. I personally don't like the Maryland's Fallacy variant, because I think it can feel very, very awkward to have every 4th hit dealing like 5 times the damage, or even more sometimes. So it can feel very, very strange dealing a lot of small hits and then just one big bonk in the wrong moment. But I want to showcase it because very interesting tech here, very interesting. And this is pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Yo, very cool setup. Then we've got a low life variant using Malachi's Loop, lots of power charges and Valakesh, lots of power charges, lots of endurance charges. Also using brutal charges by gaining endurance charges, while using Ralakesh, which then give the brutal charges. Very interesting. And it also does use Fortitude to gain Fortify, just some more defense. Overall, the hit pools are not all that great, but it has 2k energy shield and about 600 ward that get refreshed all the time due to the flask being used very often while being in fight. Very, very interesting setup. Also using the Ravenous Passion, which gives a lot of rage when using your mana, and also actually it doesn't generate rage through flow of battle, so it just gets the rage through Ravenous Passion. Low life setup, uses mana for casting, a lot of damage, seems, crit variant, and yes, interesting setup. I like the rage mechanic, though I do feel like there is some stuff it's missing out on, because it uses in the Ravenous Passion. I don't know how well the rage generation works, but it should be pretty good. Though I do think Battle Trance should always be picked in these setups. And take a look at here, rage is maximum 30. It is at 900k damage. When we take a look at Battle Trance plus this, it's 4 points and gets the character to 47 rage, which is about 12 or 13% more. Quite a bit of more damage there, just through 4 points. I do think these should be taken on these setups, but I haven't played them, so I can't tell exactly, just my thoughts on. Next setup, a very classical power charge stacker, but with a very, very cool twist. So we're just gaining a whole ton of power charges. This character has, I think, 12 or 13 power charges? 11, it's actually 11. And then it utilizes Badge of the Brotherhood to gain all of these power charges as frenzy charges as well. And when we take a look at the Forbidden Flame and Flash, it uses the Slayer Ascendancy Masterful Form to then get the same amount of frenzy charges as endurance charges. This gives the character 11 power, frenzy, and endurance charges, which is so much. This is a very, very, very strong setup. Would probably be stronger on plus power charge rings, though extremely expensive. But I think on 13 power, frenzy, endurance charges, this build would very much look very, very cool. The max hit pools again are not very high on this variant, though the damage should be through the roof. Very, very cool setup. I think it's very interesting going without life flask because it's more or less energy shield based. Some life in there as well, but overall a very, very squishy setup compared to the others. Though still not too squishy because of the whole lot of block and damage reduction through the endurance charges. Again, very cool setup. I think the tech of Badge of the Brotherhood, power charge stacking, and then the Forbidden Flame Flash is just noteworthy and very, very cool. The character has tons of life rec, so as soon as the character survives, it will stand. It can only be one shot because it has like 2k life and 2k life rec pretty much. So very, very cool build. Very cool build. Lots of survivability until it gets one shot. So it lives until it does. Very, very good. And I just like it. So yeah, then we have this here, which is a very interesting turn again. Uses the Eternal Damnation and a lot of chaos resistance to gain more defense out of this. Uses Swallowing to trigger Molten Shell, Wave of Conviction, and Conductivity for utility. And enables the foregoing of the more than skill ascendancy points and gives Weapon Master, which in case of a scepter is 20% more AoE, which might help with overlaps. Currently I still am very much, I don't know about the overlaps, just feels very strange, sometimes good, sometimes bad. It's interesting to say the least. Other than that, there is not too much extremely interesting tech. It uses Smite, which is something I have seen quite a bit and might take a look at also. Because I do think Smite is a pretty strong tech in the build, gives a lot of damage, and sometimes we just have downtime, so why not use Smite? But we'll see more of that in the coming future. Then we have our first Doryani's variant here. Though this one is not as min-maxed, only 150 minus lightning resistance. There definitely is going to be more in the future. Level 97 only, but 7 days ago fetched, so I'm not sure if there's happening more on this side. Though using an Eye of the Great Wolf to forego some lightning mitigation. But aside from that, not too much interesting to look at here in my opinion. It's a cool idea to go with Doryani's prototype, and we will see more of that in the upcoming future. But I want to showcase one very, very high-end Doryani's prototype build here as well. Uses the Squire and wand with lightning penetration, increased critical damage, crit strikes, and more spell damage wand. Very, very strong setup, Awakened Empower, so you can see where the budget goes here. Uses Mage Blood, uses Apparent Interrogation, and uses a Helical Ring to gain minus 165 lightning resistance, which is enough to push it to minus 200 due to the minus base resistances and the Thread of Hope. I think this is one of the highest damage setups you can build with the character. Uses Ravenous Passion as well, but cannot generate rage through the Ravenous Passion due to running the life tap support. So it does use the Flow of Battle support to generate rage. Though this rage generation should not be enough to sustain Berserk in any form, so this character is not using it, as far as I have seen. I'm missing something, but I don't think I am. So yeah, that's pretty much, well, the extremely high-end version of setup. Very, very cool, and we will see more of that in the future, as said. So this is one of the coolest setups I have seen. So it's not using Divine Retaliation as its main skill, really. It has Divine Retaliation, Spellblade, Archmage, and Physical to Lightning in its setup and its additional damage. But the very, very cool tech of this build I have seen is the Searching Through Legion Sword. This one triggers Storm Cascade when you attack. Then it does utilize Frenzy of Onslaught with Prismatic Burst, which just attacks, then triggers a spell, and the mana cost of this spell due to Arcane Search trigger the Kitava's Thirst, which trigger Arc and Lightning Conduit. So it's a very, very cool trigger setup. I very much found very interesting to look at. So I have no idea how this character plays, and sadly couldn't see and couldn't find it in action, but it looks very, very cool. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just a very, very interesting setup. I thought it was worth sharing. And last but not least, the Sandbag setup. I have talked with him a lot and we have shared some ideas. The most interesting part I wanted to share here is the Doppelgängers guys. which while being insane gives 38% less physical and chaos damage taken, which also does apply to dots, and regenerate 10% of life over 1 second when hit while sane. While hit does not mean you have to take damage, so whenever you block a hit, you're gaining 10% life rec, which is a huge amount of regen from one piece. And in addition, he is using the Forbidden Taste, with used when you take a savage hit, which recovers your entire life on use, and then puts a degen on you, which degens 25% of life as chaos damage, but due to 90% chaos resistance, it only applies 5. Wait, let me do math quickly here. 2.5 would be 10%. Yes, which is only 2.5% of the degen per second, which is pretty much nothing in this setup. So very, very cool tech here, using Megalomaniacs to cap your maximum chaos resistance to 90, and then uses a Glorious Vanity with Divine Flesh to make elemental damage be taken as chaos damage partly, which makes this a very, very, very strong tanky variant. Also uses Ravenous Passion for rage generation, and has the rage masteries here as well. Very, very strong setup. I really like the execution of this. And yeah, this is the last character I wanted to showcase here. All of these very cool ideas, all of these very different ideas, which I think is extremely cool to see so many different characters for one archetype, which is something we don't see often lately. We have fairly stale archetypes in the past, and I think this is an extremely cool addition to what we currently have in like the building side things. So now, before we end here, I want to take a quick look at my DB2, DR2 dash, which is what we are up to in the near future. We are seeing a Doryanis, we are seeing a Wrathful Globe, Dissolution of Flesh, Crown of Thorns with a Glimpse of Chaos Corruption. We see an Eye of the Red Wolf, a Mirrored Vermilion Ring, and a Mage Blood, which will we take use of. So this is going to be a very interesting setup. I still need to create the weapon for it to switch to the build, so we'll have to wait a few days more for me to actually get back with feedback on how it worked out in the end. But this is what I am looking forward to in the next days, and I hope that we'll all have a great time with it. So if you have any questions about any of these builds, feel free to drop them down in the comments, take a look at the builds. Don't forget to like and subscribe. These YouTube things, you know. And yes, that's pretty much all I want to talk about. So thanks for watching, have a good day, and see you on the next one.